Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of ISK. You know, one thing I've noticed in a lot of the guides and everything else out there is that a lot of the information is relatively high level and esoteric. There'll be arguments about the philosophies of inflation and other things like that. And I think a lot of people get lost on their way to these points because what they really are just looking for is, I need to make some money. You know, show me a way to make some money. And while we're going to cover some of those high-level topics later on, I'm going to give you a little bit of something first. Easy money. And that's today's episode. We're going to talk about 2 ways to bring in easy money in Eve that pretty much everybody should be taking advantage of. And I don't know why people don't. And we'll talk about those 2 level things, and then, you know, on another episode later on, we'll start talking about some of the more high-level stuff. So, there are 2 things we're going to talk about today. One are research agents and data cores, and the other are blueprint copies. First, we'll talk about data cores and research agents. When the Tech 2 Blueprint lottery was shut down, they switched over to an invention style where you put together a bunch of junk and you could invent a Tech 2 BPC. One of the principal things you needed to invent a Tech 2 BPC was data cores. Data cores sell in the market between 100,000 to 500,000 ISK per data core, depending on which type you use. They're generated by using by starting up a job with a research agent. And it is amazing how easy to do this is. Now, you need a couple skills just to start working with a research agent. You have to have at least level 1 of the skill he works in. So, graviton physics, you need that at level 1. The good news is, if you're a dictator pilot, you already have that for specifically graviton physics. Science 5 is a prerequisite for all of these advanced research skills. But if you're a Sino, if you light Sinos, you've already got that. Even if you don't, it takes a week to train it, and you should have it anyway, because you're going to need it to train graviton physics for being a dictator pilot, which everybody should be able to do, and you're going to need it for being able to light a Sino, sinusoidal field theory, I guess, which everybody needs to be able to do. These are skills you're going to want anyway. So you get this skill specific to the research agent. You can find the research agents on eveagents.com. There's a couple other, just Google Eve Agent Database, and you'll find a good listing of the different research agents. You don't have to necessarily work with a high-quality agent. You could just start with some scrub, 1 minus 15 guy, and he'll start generating research data cores for you. You start the project, and he generates them at some rate. This rate's determined by his level, his quality, his standings with you, and all these other things. If you're the kind of person that likes to go and run missions, you can grind up missions with these guys to get your standings higher. Otherwise, you can just set it up and forget it. You can start with just a single research agent generating data cores for you. If you have Laboratory Operations 5 and Research Project, then you can start training Research Project Management, which lets you get more research agents. In general, I would suggest getting Laboratory Operations 5 based on what we're going to talk about later with blueprint copies. However, you don't have to have it. You could just work with one. So, let's talk about how much money you're actually making off of this. You're making, let's just say you're making crappy data cores. They sell for like $200K a pop. You are generating with just a low-quality guy, only one of them out there. You're going to be generating around 100,000 ISK per day in data cores, about half a data core per day. So 100,000 ISK per data core, or per agent per day. So for one agent over the course of a month, 3 million. It's not that great. Of course, you can also have all your alt accounts doing this as well, if you've got them trained into the right thing. Or you can get Research Project Management trained up a little bit, and you can get up to about 12 million ISK a month. It's still not a lot, but if you get your higher standings up, you get your science skills up, you get these other things up, you can start hitting about 60, 70 million ISK a month. The best thing about it, though, because it's not a lot of money, but the best thing about it is that it's a set and forget thing. You start up these projects, and they just generate data cores for you forever. And I've forgotten about some of these guys and come back and been like, oh crap, I've got 200 data cores. There's quite a bit of ISK I can just pull out at any time. And so that's a very nice, very low risk, it's not a lot of income, but there's no work involved in it if you're not grinding up the stats. If you want to grind up the stats, good for you. I mean, really, you can take a weekend and get yourself up to a much higher level of research agent. Just 2 days, 8 hours, do a handful of missions. And you'll be pulling in a lot more off of that. But you don't have to. Anyway, very easy way to make a little extra cash. Alright, so that was one way. Now let's talk about another way. That's blueprint copies. And this one is a little bit more lucrative. It takes a little bit more work, but it's more lucrative. The required skill points for it are almost negligible. You can actually start copying blueprints right off the bat. Well, let's talk about the skill points afterwards, actually. Blueprint copies are used for invention. You copy a bunch of, you get a bunch of max run copies of something like 220mm autocannons, and you use those to invent stuff. It takes a while to make these copies, so some people actually just buy these blueprint copies off of the market, contracts to be specific. Now, you're going to be focusing on blueprint copies that are used for invention. So, think PvP, autocannons, large shield extenders, large shield extenders, warp disruptors, etc., etc., etc. The copies take a long time to make due to extended waits, but you should be able to find a location that has a decent waiting time, like 2 weeks. And after that, the 2-week wait, you're going to have about 4 days to actually make the copy. So you should be generating, in that 4 days, you make up 20 copies. That's the max you can make in one job. So over the course of a month, you should be making about 30 copies from each copy slot. So that's about 1.5 cycles. These copies individually sell between about 100 and 300K. So each copy slot is going to generate about 3 to 9 million ISK per month. Now let's go back to the skill points for a second, because this is the really cool thing about it. The copy slots take nothing to train. Science 3, and then you jump into laboratory operation, and each step of laboratory operation gets you another copy slot. So you can put this on your alt accounts. Take a week, train them into your alt accounts. You'll have 12 copy slots generating, and if you set them all up at the same time, you come in twice a month and flip this over. So you're making 3 to 9 million ISK per month per copy slot. You've got 4 copy slots on 3 characters. You're looking at, 6 copy. Let's say you do about 6 copy slots per account, or per alt character on an account. That's about 50 million ISK a month. Easy money. The only difficult part is that you actually have to manage this, as opposed to the data cores where you just set this and go cache it in wherever. With the copies, you've got to come in and reset them every once in a while. It's pretty easy money. Personally, I actually take these copies and these data cores and I use them in invention, but that's a much more complicated process, and that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about here today. This is something that anybody can do, and it's very, very, very easy money. We'll talk about one final thing it's another option. It's slightly less lucrative, because with these first two options, the data cores, there's no investment. You invest a little bit of time getting the skills in, and maybe some ISK on the skill book for the science skill. Those are about 10 million ISK for one of the advanced science skills that will help you define what research agent you use. And with the blueprint copying, you're going to need a blueprint original to do the copying. Most of those are going to cost you between 1 and 8 million ISK per BPO. This third thing we're going to talk about is material efficiency research on blueprints. This is a little different because whereas before you have a really small amount of initial investment and it just generates money, this actually has a little bit more significant initial investment and it's a much longer haul, but it's still money to be made relatively easy. The issue here is that material efficiency research takes upwards of a couple months to go through. You have often as high as a 30-day wait period, and then you're going to train the ME, or research the ME, the material efficiency, for 30 days. That's a long time. And if you're looking at something like a ship, that doesn't even get you close to where you want to be. That'll get you to like an ME of 11. So you need to do that a couple times. It's a long haul. And as opposed to the copying, where you're looking at things that are used for invention, ME research is different. You're using this for things that are actually going to be manufactured. That would be certain ships, certain Tech 1 ships, like say ruptures or hurricanes. And in that case, you're looking at an initial investment of 80 to 400 million that you're not going to get paid out on for half a year. It's a long haul investment, but it's risk-free for the most part. You put that in there, and every 2 months you start it back up again on the ME research, and at the end of it, you can sell it for a 20, 30, 40% increase on value. There are cheaper ones you can do that have good returns also. They're cheaper blueprints, but they have solid returns, and that would be rigs is an example of something like that. Rigs are relatively cheap, like a large capacitor control circuit, rig BPO. It's not that expensive, and it will definitely increase in value if you research the ME. Same thing with bombs. But you can go the other direction too, to the really expensive stuff, fighter BPOs. Research those up. People will buy them for a much higher cost over the long run. So this is something that doesn't really generate as much as if you have more ifs than you know what to do with, you can throw something in one of these research slots. Most people don't take advantage of their research slots, research or copy slots, and those can make you money. And they should be making you money. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about today. Kind of a short podcast, but these three. There's kind of a bigger point here, and that generating ISK and Eve is not about selling one glass of lemonade for $1 million, but selling 1 million glasses for $1. Each of these things I've mentioned here don't generate a lot of ISK on their own. 20 million ISK a month on the research agents. That's not that much. 50 million ISK a month on copy slots. It's not that much. But you start adding all these together, and you keep adding them, and you keep adding them, and it starts adding up. And these items are particularly nice because they're relatively low risk. I would actually argue that they're zero risk. Assuming you don't screw up on something, they're pretty much zero risk. And they generate money. They're ISK faucets that everybody should have on. Like putting money in your 401k. There's just no good reason not to do it. If you get company matching. If you don't, But, it's one of those things. Why not do it? So I just wanted to talk about those couple things today. Just as here are some ways to make money. These are some of the only ways that are this obvious and this easy. There's very few of these out there. So I thought I'd throw them out there immediately, kind of get you guys a little hooked for what's going to come over the next couple of months, which is going to be some much more advanced and much more difficult systems of making money in Eve. And with that, thank you and good night. I gotta go watch Glee.
Come on. Yes. Come on. Yes. Come on.